Buddy.
Yes.
Let's go.
All right, we're rolling.
So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To
to the flag
of
of
the
the United States of
America.
America,
to the republic,
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
Nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Roll call.
Dr. Fike, Mr. Frund,
here,
Mrs. Geyer,
Here.
Mr. Liza, Mrs. O'Rear,
Here.
Mr. Polakowski,
here,
Mr. Shipley,
here,
Mrs. Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Williams,
Here.
Tyson Martin,
Here.
Brighton Montgomery.
here.
For the record, Dr. Fike and Mr. Liza both indicated they would not be present tonight.
Thank you. And I just wanted to announce that we were in executive session prior to this meeting for personnel matters. Are there any citizens' comments?
Mr. Jan Kiefer,
Do you have him ready to go? I see a number up there.
That is him.
Okay. He is still muted. Mr. Kiefer, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can now.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, that could have been my fault. This is difficult. Jan Kiefer, 628 Homestead Avenues. Tonight I'm going to be a little more cheerful than usual. Last month, while President Biden got up and said that we were in for a long, dark, deadly winter of hospitalizations and deaths from COVID, on another screen, I was watching the house house of cards that Fauci has built crumble. Pillars in corporate media, in orthodox science, in entertainment, military personnel, courts, even politicians were softening and backtracking. Public awareness of effective treatment for COVID was becoming mainstream, and necessary to say factual reports of vaccination injuries and death data were breaking through the censorship wall of the government. The illusion was lifting. The leading voices of the opposition finally had a platform. Joe Rogan's podcast, it's larger than Tucker's or all the others combined, spread around the world. And he gave a platform to the leading voices of the opposition. No less than 5 Centennial government media defiant books became overnight bestsellers around the world. America had new rock stars emerge. They were called the doc stars. That's doctor stars. People were learning and are learning. With the COVID medical issues in the rearview mirror, we're going to see the power of those controlling the COVID misinformation narrative push back. This is the narrative that Southmoreland to this point has pushed forward. For an example, England has announced in the last few days it's returning to normal. No masks, no mandates, none of that stuff. But on the other side, Austria voted today, and they were expected to mandate universal vaccinations. No little loopholes and things like that. And the U.S. is a big target, so to be certain, it's coming to a neighborhood near you. These superpower people, who, however you want to see them or call them, that are wishing that our freedoms are lost, as we saw with the COVID crackdowns. And these people are looking for a new global economic political era, and they're ready. And there's going to be something most likely galvanizing a false flag or a something authentic, but we're going to have to see if we've learned the COVID lessons in the damage that it's caused from idolizing these government agencies and subjecting ourselves to the mass media powers, the Tom Wolfs, the CDCs, the Pennsylvania Department of Health. So in closing, we're at a risk. We're at a risk of overnight becoming China. The preservation of our republic will demand the lessons learned from those that have historically been ahead of the curve be employed, and those that were dragging the curve are put back. For America to prevail, locals must not isolate and set up systems to support and protect ourselves in all aspects, and the public schools is the heart of today's society. If Southmoreland is on the front of your paycheck, you're an opinion leader, like it or not.
Thank you, Mr.
You guys with more than 3 minutes need to, as the saying goes, lead or get the hell out of the way. Thank you. Goodbye.
Do we have any other citizens' comments?
No.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Donna Keene from St. Vincent College Prevention Projects.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Donna Keene, the Executive Director of the St. Vincent College Prevention Projects. And I know that there have been maybe some questions in regards to some programming and services, and I'd like to address any questions that you have this evening and clarify any of that information to the best of my ability, and moving forward with the services. So I know that there was a question in regards to the dedication of the annual contribution that all the different school districts do submit to the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission as part of our budget line. And I was just wondering, how can I clarify that and provide you with additional information of what that does cover. Be aware that the Drug and Alcohol Commission is committed to providing services, and you receive, I think, 95.5 extra days to help supplement the services. I know that you do help support our programming, but those are additional days that go into the budget, and they've asked that there be some kind of commitment or dedication for that level of service from all the districts. So it is part of the budget line from the prevention projects that we have to reveal to the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission that these are other sources supporting the level of service that they are dedicating to each district. So do you need to have additional information in regards to what those services are, or more specific questions that I can help answer? I would love to be able to do that.
So is there a bill that we receive from you all that is a bill for these services? And is this $1,020 in addition to that bill? Our problem is where this is a donation, honestly, to just, in a district that we are continually cutting programs, we should not be donating to anything at this point.
It's not a donation. It is showing that every district has a certain level of a commitment for the services. So you receive 95.5 days of service through the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. And what they're asking is a commitment on the end of all the districts to help support that. They've not increased that amount in over 30 years or so. So if you had to pay outright for those 95.5 days, that would be an additional $31,518.85 out of your own pocket on top of, what you're currently supporting. So they're not asking that amount. They're asking for the $1,020 to show that there is a commitment from the district for their level of service that they're providing. And that goes in under, like I said, our budget line. Every district has to pay that commitment or dedication, that contribution. However, I'm not exactly sure the wording you're thinking, but that is under our budget line. So we've got over $25,000 that we show to the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission that the districts are willing to pay towards those services.
So does this money go to the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission?
No, it comes to the St. Vincent College prevention projects. We have to show on our budget that there's a line that says other sources that come into our budget to help support their services that they're providing to all the school districts.
Okay.
So that's where we would show that level on our individual budget. That would be part of an additional $25,000 from all the districts across the county.
So if we, and the letter does say donation, I think that's part of the problem. It says, we hope that you will provide the same donation as you did last year. So if we don't make this donation, we don't receive the services.
Well, yes, because it would show that the district isn't supporting the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission's level of service.
So can they just bill us directly? Can they, I don't understand.
No,
I guess I don't understand how making a donation of $1,100 offsets $30,000 in a bill.
So is this a match type thing where St. Vincent
Yes.
is receiving grant money from WEDAC and you all have to provide some type of, a certain percentage of that needs to be paid by districts? So it's like a grant match.
Yes, it is. And it does state that in the letter that went out back in July, that it does indicate the district's match. That's what's actually on your invoice. It says your district's match to provide prevention services through the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. It spells out what those 95.5 days are. And that's where it says your rate is $1,020. So I'm not sure where you're seeing the donation. I don't recall anywhere where it specifically states a donation. But it does indicate it's a district.
Whatever we received, and maybe it's just a letter, because I don't think anything we received specifically stated 95 days or anything like that. We were
This
given
letter
a
on, this letter on here does, that he has shared on here.
Maybe it's a new one, because the last one definitely said, that's why we were all hung up on it. It said donation.
I think this letter is the one that you sent out to request that we revisit this. So I think this letter has a little more information in it than the previous letter in June or July did.
Right.
Right.
So-
That's been the annual letter for decades, I'll say.
It's
But
the
on
bill.
the invoice actually says it's a district match. If you see the invoice.
The invoice that we received for $1,020 does say district contribution.
And it does say your portion of payment for these services, which makes it sound more like a bill rather than a donation.
With using I understand that $1,020 gets us 95.5 days of service, but what service, or I guess I should say, what statistic has your program prevented in drug and alcohol use for our district?
Well, we're K to 12 or K to 9 for your classroom education. And we provide research-based programming from grades 4 through 9. And then our own proprietary program, REAL, we provide that at grades K through 3. And REAL has been looked at through the Department of Drug and Alcohol programs, and it's been a promising program on the blueprint status of drug and alcohol research-based. St. Vincent's not a research-based institution, but researchers have reviewed our information. We've been written up in journals, for the level of knowledge that the students are receiving as far as drug and alcohol. If they had not received that information, the amount of knowledge that they would be lacking, would be different. And actually, years ago, we had a researcher take a look at a district who hadn't had our program for years and a district that consistently held our programs, and saw just the knowledge base and the decision making around the use of drugs and alcohol, the difference there without having that education provided to them.
Well, I think that, like, looking back at this, I think that we probably just received information that wasn't quite complete, because I know that we all asked, like, is this a donation? And yes, it is. I think we even said, if we don't make the donation, do we still receive the services? And everyone was super confused about what it was. And I mean, I personally know these services are very important. If it's a billed invoice, that's very, and I even said, can't we just get an invoice? Like, it makes such a big difference, rather than contribution being explained to us as a donation. We can't do that. I mean, I'm all for it. If this is something that we receive services for and we're billed an invoice for, of course. I mean, it's to me, it's important programming, and it always has been. I just was more of the, I don't understand. How can you have a donation or contribution, whatever you want to call it, and we still receive the same services if we do it or don't do it? It was just really confusing. So that helps a lot, me at least. I don't know anybody else. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad we're having this discussion, because I did want to
Yes.
clarify, the information. So I wasn't sure exactly what all the questions were. I just knew that there was some question on the invoice, and
Yeah.
so I wanted to make
So
sure
for-
everybody understands. So I think it was Ms. Williams who said it, district match, and that's exactly what they're asking. And they haven't raised it in over 30 years, but you've received a lot more services than you were receiving 30 years ago. They just keep adding to it and not asking for anything more from the districts. So we're very fortunate in that area, because a lot of other programs, county programs across the state, are asking for more and more contributions, or, districts to put out additional funds there. And so that's a very scary thought, because we know you don't have that. That's one of the reasons why the Drug and Alcohol Commission in our county is saying, we know that school districts aren't receiving additional funds, and, and we want to sustain those services.
So you said through 9th grade. What about the most pertinent years where drug abuse is highly used? I mean, drugs are highly used in the high school years, 9 through 12. Like, where do we get those services from? I mean,
well, we do have services in 10th, 11th, and 12th. And we could, right now, you receive intervention services for students that are having difficulties, need individual group kind of services. You receive those additional services at that level. But classroom services for your grades 10 through 12, at one point in time, it was a scheduling kind of issue. So I don't know what your current status is. We've got services in place that we could provide. And, again, I would pull from the Drug and Alcohol Commission for some of those services to help sustain that, if you want to look at that in the future.
is that something that you'd be able to maybe, like, if you have pamphlets on, or maybe even a PDF that's saved that you could send over to Mr. Masha or Dr. Clara that we could look into?
Sure. We actually wrote a special grant a few years back, probably about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago, in regards to some gaps at that high school level, and were awarded some additional funds that we provide in other districts for that 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. It's only 4 lessons, but it is more specific to those different grade levels. So say like grade 10, you're starting to drive, and so maybe you need to know more about driving under the influence kind of information. 11th grade, there's some focus on prescription medications and the use of that, and that peer pressure at the more social kind of events. And then at the 12th grade level, getting ready to go out in your career, and you know, how some of these decisions that you make about parties and drinking and social kind of activities like that can interfere with your future jobs or your schooling and things of that nature. So we look at each grade level. That has been going very well for us. And like I said, that's very specific to just 4 lessons, because we know at that high school level, there's scheduling for more of those research-based kind of programs that might be 10 or 12 lessons are more difficult.
So I know, I mean, we could, as you know, as a district or as a board or a single person can get in touch with, say, NA or AA, and I mean, we can have a live person come in and do, you know, fill our auditorium up, and they can give real life stories. I truly believe wholeheartedly that that's more of an impact than anything, is hearing somebody else's story. You know, not saying that what you're doing or the services that you provide are anything, but I think it's a wonderful service that you provide. You know, I just think that's a crucial age of like, of actually showing, I mean, because, you know, we look at them, they're young adults. So I think that that's something that we as a board and we as a district really need to look into. So thank you for answering.
Sure. And we can work with you too, you know, and if you don't have those connections, we can try to make some of those connections for you for that more assembly kind of style. We personally are required through our funding sources to do single classroom kinds of services, because research has shown that that is more impactful, long lasting impact, I guess I should say, because it's consistent and sustained. So through our funding sources, that's what we have to do, but we can consult and work with you in regards to some of those other kinds of activities.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for your time.
Donna, if you have any additional information, can you send that to me and I could forward it out to the board?
Sure, not a problem.
Thank you.
Sure.
Of the November 18th, 2021 meeting.
Board is asked to approve the minutes of the November 18th, 2021 voting meeting.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes of December 6th, 2021 reorganization meeting.
Board is asked to approve the minutes of the December 6th, 2021 reorganization meeting.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Monthly board treasurer's report.
Board is asked to approve the October and November treasurer's report.
I need a motion.
Motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call?
Mr. Frond,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza, Mr. Liza, you're muted. You're muted.
Can you shake his head? Yes or no?
Mr. Liza,
Thumbs up.
I think he's having trouble.
it should be down in the left-hand corner. There should be, there you go.
Should be okay now.
Yeah,
Yes, my one is yes. Sorry, I got a
you're
headache.
okay. Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
General Fund Board Summary Report.
Board is asked to approve the board summary report for October 2021.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so I need a motion.
So move.
Need a second?
Okay. Second. Did we skip something?
Discussion.
Sure, November.
So this, what the motion was for October. This is actually looks like the November report.
Right. Well, and both were on October, oh, general fund, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely in November.
Yeah, I apologize. It should be November. Do we need to?
We'll need a
anything with
motion
this?
to amend.
Okay,
I make the motion to amend the recommended action of stating October when it should state November.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So I now need a motion to approve the November 2021 board summary report.
I make that motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Frond,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Is she frozen?
Me, yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Accounting and food service check summary listing.
The board is asked to approve the fund accounting and food service check summary listing.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
I'll make a
Second.
motion.
Discussion.
Did we know that they're upside down?
they're upside down. No, I did not know that.
I tried to turn them, but they just turned sideways.
They didn't switch. Okay, and I did want to make mention too that if you notice the for December there are 2 general funds. One was with PNC, which we were phasing out, and the new one was with FMB, which we successfully switched over in December.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith, Mr. Front,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Cyber charter expense analysis.
I would like to make one note. Tomorrow is the the day of the grades are due for SOLA. I am meeting with the high school guidance department and the principal. We are looking at all students enrolled in SOLA to determine those that might have difficulties and are failing. We are going to be cleaning up SOLA enrollment. So I will have a report on February concerning any changes in the SOLA enrollment. So we are working tomorrow on that with the high school guidance and administration.
Is there any other discussion on this?
Will that indicate maybe, well, I guess not, because Mrs. Bondoc, you have the actual, what it costs per enrollee in SOLA, correct? That doesn't change, like what Mr. Mash is doing is the numbers.
Yeah, what he's doing actually is a little bit different than what this is. This is like the ones that you see advertised on TV, such as cyber charter and those type things. SOLA is actually something different as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. I didn't know they went through the different.
Yeah, they're a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, the SOLA is something that we do in-house, which is hosted through, I believe, the IU. But this is actually something that, like I said, you see them all the time. The cyber charter schools advertised on TV. That's what this is.
Okay. All right.
Any other discussion? Superintendent information.
I have included some information there. I know there was some concerns the last board meeting about the sidewalks. There was an estimate that was presented to Mr. Basham, excuse me, back in July. And there, I do believe that he had reached out to Tim O'Connor from Big Bear Concrete for an update on the estimate. So I have included that information on the on board docs. I've attached it for the documents. I have also on documents, and this will be posted on our website tomorrow. I have there is some new COVID guidelines, a flow chart that makes it really easy to understand and put some sense into the quarantining issue. So I've included that, and that will also be posted on our website tomorrow. And I have received some information from Dr. Veronica Ent, a professor of education at St. Vincent's College, asking for placement from St. Vincent's into some of our classes. I would like to call her and have a discussion what that entails. She has mentioned House Bill 412 Act 195 that does allow for make some changes in substitutes, but I would really like to clearly define what she is asking for in her email, but I have included the email here. So I will be reaching out to her tomorrow to have a discussion concerning that. And I've included a little snippet below of what House Bill 412 Act 91 actually means. So it's the bottom. And I apologize from the very beginning. I wanted to make sure that we welcomed our new student representatives, Tyson Martin and Brighton Montgomery. I'm very pleased for them to join us. They are both wonderful students and wonderful individuals. So I welcome them to the board, and I'm sure down the line they're going to have some valuable input from the students' perspective. So I welcome them and I thank them for joining us.
Thank you. So moving back to the sidewalk issue here, we had received this quote back in July, and we had a few months that we could have done these repairs and we didn't again. So I'd like to see this be back on the agenda next meeting so that we can vote on this, approve it, and get this on the calendar for some company to come in here and do the work. Because I think it's unacceptable, again, to vote on items and never have any follow through. That's my biggest complaint from last week. We're all dedicating a lot of our time here. And the fact that we're still talking about these sidewalk repairs 2 years later, and it's $4,800 is shameful. So, Ms. Asher, please make sure that's on the agenda moving forward next month.
It'll be on there.
And I would think now probably the material is even higher in cost.
It looks like it's the same because it looks like they do. I did just verify that to be sure we weren't paying more now on top of it, but it looks like the same exact quote.
It is.
We received back in July. So at least those prices haven't increased, but I think we should get it on a schedule so that, you know, when the weather breaks, we're towards the top of the list and not towards the bottom of the list. So
I'm only seeing the quote from back in July.
there's two on there.
Is there?
Right above the COVID guidelines, there's a concrete leveling 7/6/2021, and then there's Southmoreland School District Charlie B estimate 2022-118. And I do believe, Pam, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that when there was conversations concerning the paving, there are some drainage sites in the back of this building. When I say this building, I'm talking about the middle school that might need replaced. And there was some talk that when the paving occurred, then maybe the individual could look at the concrete also. So that is something that I will get further clarification on also for the board.
That is correct. That is what Mr. Basham had communicated to me as well, that whenever he had spoken with the architecture firm from Eccles, that's one of the things they had talked about, that while we had a concrete person on staff, they could look at some of the ones that actually that were cracked and broken and needed repair.
All right. Who's responsible? Is it us or PennDOT for the sidewalk at the roadway? Isn't there a sidewalk at the roadway that leads up from the bottom, like where parents turn in, say at the high school?
At the high school, Mrs.
Yeah.
O'Rear?
We'd be responsible for sidewalks. I don't think PennDOT's responsible for sidewalks
PennDOT.
anywhere.
PennDOT will never do that.
Yeah, we would be responsible for any side.
Even closest to the road, like
Yep.
runs along. I don't know. I can't remember if it runs alongside of the road or not. No, maybe not. Okay.
I think it's just as you turn up in, there might be a sidewalk there, but there's nothing along the actual roadway there.
Okay. Yeah, I would definitely like to have something also too that has to do with possibly a different design for the primary center of how parent pickup is designed. Even if it's just, kind of adding, not necessarily like, because when you go in, it's kind of curved. So they sit alongside of the road. Even if we can move a little bit of that grass, just so they're kind of off of 981 right there. Maybe
I know that Greg Kiefer has expressed some concerns about the potential for traffic problems there. So I know that is something that he's interested in also exploring.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets quite crazy there sometimes during times.
Spring for sure.
Yeah, especially when you have softball going on and everything.
Yeah.
Baseball.
Yeah.
That is all I have, Mrs. Williams.
Thank you. Solicitor's information?
Thank you. I have no legal information to present to the board at tonight's meeting.
That's what we like to hear. Business manager's information.
Well, I have a few things to present this evening. The first one is Mr. Basham and myself met with Mark from Eccles Architecture and Engineering and John Weiland from HF Lens Company in regard to the rooftop unit replacement at the middle school and elementary. those funds that we had had you vote on in regard to ESSERS 2. So we received a proposal from Mark in regard to his architectural and MEP engineering basic services for this, which we will be putting on for a board motion for you to vote next month in a total of $43,600. What we talked about was the projects include but aren't limited to federal ESSERS funding utilized to pay for the work of a rooftop unit replacement at the middle school, rooftop unit replacement at the elementary school. The project will reassign to 2 base bids that will divide the work into 2 projects. The first base bid will include replacing 3 units on the elementary school. The second base bid includes replacing 4 units at the middle school. We also talked to them about providing Oz to be the basis design for the new control components. Parts from the existing units will be available to the schools before removed from the site so that we can use those for some of our older units to kind of salvage and help save some cost as we repair things going forward. The existing units are Aon. However, we discussed with them about looking at some items from Johnson Controls, Trains and Carrier. And the base bids will also have alternate bids. So that is something, like I said, that we will put forth for you all to vote on next month. So that is up and moving in regard to the rooftop replacement units for the HRU units, or HVAC units is which I refer to them as. Also, the Banyan, we did not put the motion this week for you to approve because Mr. Delawicker is working with them on the contract, and we didn't want to put that forth for you all to vote on until the contract was settled to Mr. Delawicker's liking. The third and final thing I have to review today is the audited financial report. We actually had a very favorable outcome of last year's audit. Our fund balance in the 1920 year was $3,255,706. Our fund balance at the end of 2021 was $3,873,362, which was an increase to the bottom line of $617,656. So that's definitely something that's a good thing for the district. Oh, and one other thing, in regard to First National Bank, I believe I had told you that I had implemented the change. We also implemented this within the last week and a half, what is called positive pay. Each time we cut checks, we upload them to the bank software, and that is another protection for us for the bank against fraud for the district. So that's something that's another safeguard for us.
Can you restate those numbers?
Absolutely.
The 2020 and 2021.
2020 was $3,255,706. And the 2021 was $3,873,362, which added $617,656 to the fund balance.
So to put it into perspective, with the last business manager in the budget year, it was projected that we were going to be taking $800,000 from the fund balance in order to balance the budget.
Wow. Was that for this fiscal year or last fiscal year? The
That was
20
the audit
Audit that was just done. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's
quite a swing.
difference. It is.
But
It's all good. The bonus is it's good news. I think that's something that we need to take into account though when we're thinking about raising taxes and contracts and all of these different things, is that now we have truly had a few years in a row where we thought we were going to have a deficit and we ended up with a surplus. Now, I'm sure that the ESSERS money helps with that a lot.
The ESSERS money helps. Plus, you want to also look at the fact that when you are working virtually, you don't have a lot of the current expenditures that you normally would have whenever the students are in class. So
Right.
that I believe is why a lot of the school districts within the state of Pennsylvania have seen monies added to their fund balance, because obviously if they weren't in district, their expenditures were not nearly as high.
So where's this money been hiding the whole time?
It's not been hiding. It's been in the bank account. It's just, it's just something that thankfully whenever we did the audit, that's where we ended up shaking out at.
Well, and I think it says a lot too, because we were so over budget in cyber expenses. Like we really
Mhm.
thought we were going to be even more. And
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, everyone else that's here. It was about $800,000 that we thought we were going to take from the fund balance to balance it, right? Mr. Mash, I see
Yes.
you shaking your head. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm correct in that. So
Yes.
even with the huge expense of cyber schools and all this stuff, we still ended up with a surplus. I am confident that Mrs. Mondock, you will be able to keep us for our next budget. We'll have a little more of a grasp of where we're at, because I think everyone can say the same thing. We don't want to raise taxes if we end up with a surplus, because that's kind of counterproductive. I mean,
But I think one of the things I will say in regard to that is, I'm working on getting 3-year projections for certain things that we have coming down
Right.
the road. For
Yes.
example, within, Mr. Boring met with a gentleman, about 10 days ago in regard to our field, our football field, because obviously within the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to have to replace that. I'm waiting right now to see what type of funding we're going to need for that. I know in talking with, I'm meeting tomorrow with the buildings and grounds and custodial managers to determine, what are our current vehicles, what are the status of our scrubbers, what are the status of our lawnmowers, those type of things. We all have, we're going to be meeting at the end of the month with someone in regard to our roofs on our other buildings. That's something that we're trying to look at. You have to build up your coffers so that when those happen, that you're not put in a situation where you may have to go above the index because you have extraordinary costs. So that's, I'm trying to develop a long range plan so that, to look at the health of the district for years to come.
I think I personally am going to feel better when we're looking at an audit from 21, 22, because that will be the last budget that's not Mrs. Mondock's. That budget period was very contentious. I don't think we were getting great information. The lines of communication were not very open there. So I think I'm just going to feel better when we're sitting at the end of this year saying, this is where we've ended, because I'm very concerned that we may be under budget in some areas.
I've found some of those areas already, and I'm working with the administrators on certain items already to say, look, we have to hold up now. This is what we need to do. And I have been actively working on, whenever they're in the function, doing some function budgetary transfers so that we don't get into the situation where we say, oh, but we've got money in this account, but look, this account is overspent. So I've been working with those type things because of that fact, that I've tried to keep a very close eye on certain things.
Can we back up to the Eccles proposal?
Absolutely.
So although I understand we need to use some type of architectural firm, I'm just disappointed in what's gone on with Eccles over the past year, because we were literally sitting at this point last year, or maybe even earlier in the year, about the roof at SPC. about the paving, about projects that I think we should have moved forward on over the summer. I can understand if we didn't have the roofing material because materials are in short supply. But I've seen going on absolutely everywhere. So I'm not sure paving was, I'm just wondering, like, it seems like we met with them and then Eccles like fell off the face of the earth after we've paid them money. So I don't know, maybe I'm the only person that thinks that. But I'm just kind of disappointed in how the last year has moved with projects. And, we keep saying that we need to keep up with things and we need providing proper maintenance to the properties, or, we're going to be hit with these large bills and things are just going to further deteriorate, which costs us more money. I'm just wondering, like, why there was this, I don't know, like, where was the follow through? Was that on us? Was that on Eccles? But it just seems like Eccles did the work, went away, and we did nothing. So I just, before we pay them another $4,300, like, I guess I want that question answered as to why none of these projects, none of them, not one, not the track, not the roof, not the paving, not the sidewalks, none of those moved forward. And we had approved all of them and budgeted the money. So.
And paid them.
See that as a problem, or is it just?
I agree with you, Michelle. I mean, we haven't heard from Mark from Eccles for a while. I know it wasn't at last meeting, but the meeting before that, I don't know if we talked about it, but it was the same thing. We all felt that Eccles fell off the face of the earth. We just haven't been in contact with them as a board. I don't know about administratively if they've been talking to Mr. Bajam or Mr. Masha and giving them updates, but Mr. Schaller hasn't spoke to the board in quite some time.
We went from like 2-hour long conversations to ghosted.
Mrs. Mondock, we can reach out to Mark and see if he could be present next month.
Oh,
Yes.
gosh.
Hey, do you have anything else, Miss? I'm sorry.
Mrs. Mondock, can I ask you a question about the ESSERS money? I know for some of the ESSERS 3 money, we had budgeted for several different things. Are we moving forward? I know we haven't received that actual funding yet, but are we moving forward in purchasing those things or doing those things without the money on hand? I know that I was in a meeting with a COLA meeting, and I think it was COLA meeting. PASBO was talking about how districts can use funds and then reimburse themselves so that we can start moving forward on these things. Is that
Right.
what we're doing?
We haven't done that yet. We will be working. I know Dr. Clara and I actually spoke about it this evening before the executive session started, that he and I are going to get together and start working on that within the next week or so.
Okay, so some things we'll be able to start doing.
The challenge was we kept changing things too. And so in order to make sure you get that balance of zero, if the way we want to spend changes, we have to go back and make sure that we get back to zero. So what we want to do, and Mrs. Mondock has already created a form for it, is a way to actually come up with what those things are in their codes. So when we go to put them into the grant, it'll be a lot faster. In the past, I would put them in and then we'd have to go back and look to find for her side what the codes were that will be accepted by e-grants. And it was a much slower process. But in fairness, two things that really kind of held us up. One was we kept kind of rethinking our plan and adjusting. And then the second, probably even more pressing, is I really haven't had much time to see her. So we could spend some of that money and reimburse Ms. Smith. Yeah, absolutely we can. But as far as the actual submission part, we just haven't gotten through all of it yet. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff in there.
So we haven't submitted. So how are we hiring these teachers if we don't know if it's not, because it wasn't that in ESSERS 3?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The interventionists and the dean of students, that funding was coming from ESSERS 3. And if we haven't submitted that yet, is it safe to go ahead and hire them?
Yeah, I think it is, but because reimbursement is what you kind of have to do. Some of the bigger ticket items I wouldn't start until we had those, but those pieces, yes. And you get it in
I think those are bigger
disbursement.
ticket items.
There are some really big ticket items in there.
Mhm.
And again, we were trying to, as we were working on that, like we'd say, okay, we want 4 of these big air conditioning systems, and then now we're gonna go 3, and then we'll go 5. And so until that was settled by everyone, it really would just be me going back and rewriting it and rewriting it and rewriting it. And that's not really efficient or effective either.
One more question. So what are you putting in as the other half of all those salaries? Did you add something to that? Or are you just leaving in 2 years of those salaries?
No, what we will do when we actually do we will button it up and then make some additional adjustments, because as Mr. Masha had spoke, I believe it was him that spoke to this earlier. Like, for example, if we're going to add in the assistant principal at the high school, that was something that we hadn't budgeted, because what we were doing with Dean of Students is we were making small adjustments from what the current teachers were. So that's something that, you know, will be a rather large addition to this.
Our submission is due in March. So we've been trying to, you know, make sure it's accurate, because it's a long process to do it once. And just be honest, right now, I don't have time to do it more than once. So we'd like to get it right the first time, as close as we can be, and have as few corrections as possible, because we really can't spend a lot of time going back and forth on it.
Well, right. And I know in that meeting, they said that some people who had already applied, they weren't expecting to get their money. This meeting, I think, was in December. They were expecting to get their money in May. So if we're in March, I mean, it could be next school year by the time the actual funds come in.
So it's not necessarily that way. Like, it just depends on what you're asking for and how they do the dispersals. And you won't get all of it in one shot. It's going to be
Right.
over time. So you won't get the full amount in one shot. They will have you do, it might even be quarterly how you receive it. And we're prepared for that. I know Pam and I have talked about it at length. The biggest issue for us was trying to make sure we do it right once and not redoing it over and over and over again, which you will have corrections sometimes in a grant where they'll say, hey, you have to make an adjustment, and that should happen one time. With something this big, I don't want to keep going back into it. It gets very confusing on where things are and how you've planned for them. And then if you change it, you got to make sure not only did you change it on your paperwork, it's changing their paperwork, and the number comes out to 0, or you're going to have it returned to you, and then that slows your process down. So I feel like we're close. Like, you guys kind of know where you want to go, but until I know for sure, I'm not going to start putting it in there.
So do we need to have another meeting? Because I feel like we haven't met about that since like November.
I mean, we certainly can. I
Or
think
do you
Pam's
have
kept up with all the
everything you
updates.
need now?
We can. Pam kept up with all those updates. I know she's been kind of tracking what we've said to change, and we can share all that to make sure it looks good. But because a lot of the things were not huge changes, it was 1 or 2 things. But yes, we could do that. I'd be happy to sponsor it. But
Oh, no,
just
no. I
everybody,
just want to make sure you have everything you need.
I need another me.
I hear you.
I can't help you with that.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Okay.
Mrs. Mondock, do you have anything else?
I do not at this time. Thank you.
CWCTC report.
I think we had a really nice presentation from them last week. I think we said, honest to goodness, every time I talk, I think we said everything that, I think they said everything that I would have said about some of the new programming they have, the ability to go for tours. I did want to mention one more time, they have the 2022 Skills USA State Team. And we had many students who qualified for that, which is an extraordinary achievement. For cabling, we had David Dugan. He's in 12th grade. For chapter business procedure, Jenna Darrow, a 10th grader. In community service, Erica Eicher, a 12th grader. In community service, Tyler Persley, an 11th grader. In pin design, Christian Hart, an 11th grader. And in web design, Lucas Mulhorn, a 12th grader. So I know that they're working with our counselors to set up things for the kids to be able to get more information about what happens at the CWCTC. And I think that overall, it's going to be a great relationship.
Thank you. There will be no WIU report this evening. I don't think any of the,
What up? Dr. Fike
I'm
asked
sorry.
me just to tell everybody that the meeting is not until, I believe, next week. They did not have one since the last time she reported.
Okay, thank you. Are there any committee reports? I'm not sure any of us have met yet moving forward.
For the policy and personnel, I actually had a few teachers reach out to me and ask me to state a few things. And then I did have a COLA report too. I don't know if you want that as part of this.
Okay.
So Mrs. Lehman asked me to reach out and let everyone know that they received a grant from Walmart, and that Walmart's been very generous with them. And she would like to thank them for supporting their students in the community. I also had Ms. Richter reach out to me. The children in the gifted program are raising funds for the garden outside classroom area between the elementary school and the middle school. And I know that she has had several businesses donate towards that. Give me 1 second and I'll pull them up again. I just lost them for a second. They actually had the kids write letters to the businesses requesting donations, and then the kids are actually doing presentations for the businesses, telling them what they are raising the funds for, how they're going to utilize them, what they're going to build. And this will be something that will be able to be used by the entire school, which would be really nice. So some of those businesses are, Crivelli Chevrolet, Conrad Clark's Projects and Photography, Flicks Cornhole and Outdoor Games, Phoenix Physical Therapy, Wishes Bar and Grill, Mr. Mystery Entertainment, Quest Coach and Transit, Standard Bank, Scottsdale Lumber, and I believe there was one more she just sent me. Scottsdale Lumber was the one we needed to add. So all of those groups are supporting our Southmoreland students, which is incredible to see the ties made between and the relationships that are being built between both Mrs. Lehman's Walmart and our community businesses. I think it's a really good thing for our kids.
Fantastic.
The COLA meeting legislative, Mr. Masha actually touched on a couple of these things. Mostly it was an update from PASBO on some of the House and Senate bills in the Pennsylvania State Congress that are being talked about. Bill 152, it has to deal with waiving some of the under the hood. I know that I'm going to say these things and I'm probably saying them wrong, but it waives some of the certifications possibly that bus drivers have to have in order to be bus drivers in the school district. I think it's called the under the hood certification. So that is something they're working on just because there is such a need for bus drivers across the country. I believe it's not just us, obviously, in Pennsylvania. The Federal Infrastructure Act was passed in the House and the Senate, and it was signed into law in November by President Biden. $5 billion for clean school bus program, $550 million for safe routes to school program. $500 million for the Department of Energy, $55 billion to replace lead water lines. The House, along the lines of the water, the House is expected to consider a bill for lead testing funds for school districts. There will be a requirement that every 3 school years, all water sources will have to be tested. Hold on 1 second, please. Sorry, all water sources will have, someone's outside of my house, so this is what happens when you meet at home. House Bill 1332 requires all school entities to post curriculum online, including syllabus, core standards, every textbook that they use in the curriculum. This was passed, but it was actually vetoed by Governor Wolf. He does not feel that schools should have to put every single thing out there, which is great because that would be a lot of work for a lot of school districts to put every single book they use on a website somewhere. There is a Senate Bill 552, which talks about vexatious requester responses for right to knows. This is requests that I guess sometimes there are right to know requests that are so cumbersome and so often that it just totally inundates the office. I'm sure Mrs. Tarzan can understand that. So that actually It creates a due process to appeal to Commonwealth court system if there is a vexatious requester. Charter school reform is still being talked about, but their take on it is a new governor is going to be coming in soon, possibly. And they don't believe a lot of things will change on that in the near future, just because, you know, they're looking at that. There's always talk about the property tax elimination. There's not a lot of political backing behind that though, but it's something that always pops up. And the other thing they addressed was the staffing crisis across the state. It's not just a certain area. It's not a certain school district. This is everywhere. They talked about schools offering signing on bonuses for food services, giving signing on bonuses for paraprofessionals specifically because they need those so much. Offering substitute teachers monthly bonuses for staying on or coming. Some school districts are even offering referral bonuses to people who refer people and are hired. Some are offering retention bonuses, $1,000. There are one of the statistics, which I thought was very interesting, urban schools, substitutes are filling only 40% of their fill rate. In the past, it used to be 88%. So the amount that they're able to fill is just horrible. So they aren't able to do that. Mr. Masha also touched on the classroom monitors. That is another bill that's being put in. This is something that allows someone who is, I believe, 25 years old. There are certain requirements, 25 years old. I think you have to have a bachelor's degree and you can basically just be a monitor for a classroom. There's some requirements that go along with that, but I think that's it's not the same as being a classroom aide. It's very specific. So that's something else that's being talked about. And I know that other states have already started some things that you have to have a high school degree to be a classroom monitor. So because there's such a need, things are changing very quickly as to who can be in there. And I know even graduation rates for teachers are down. So I think this is going to be a problem we're going to have for a really long time. So I'm sorry that was so long. They did talk about a lot though, and it was really interesting. So that's all I have.
Does anybody else have anything committee-wise?
The athletic committee will be meeting on next Tuesday at 5:30 at the high school library.
Okay, so I had asked everybody if we can just get some committee meeting dates together for Peggy, if we could get those to her next week so that we can advertise them and maybe have dates through the end of the year, just so we could get them advertised through June. I know sometimes things change. If we could get the bulk of those out there to be advertised, that would be great. PSBA liaison report.
I do not have a report at this time.
Thank you. Student representatives report.
We do have a report this time.
Okay. You can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hey, hi everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Tyson Martin and I'm a senior this year. To begin, I just wanted to congratulate our monthly Scotty Scholars and our Spirit of Southmoreland students. For September, our Scotty Scholar was Julia Davis, and our Spirit of Southmoreland student was Corey Ansel. In October, our Scotty Scholar was Eric Barber, and our Spirit of Southmoreland student was Elizabeth Albright. In November, our Scotty Scholar was Mackenzie McGill, and our Spirit of Southmoreland student was Gracie Spadero. In December, our Scotty Scholar was Ella McGurry, and our Spirit of Southmoreland student was Lainey Kerber. The next thing I'd like to talk about is what's going on in Student Council. Just before Christmas break, Student Council raised over $3,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation by hosting the Southmoreland Winter Snow Court. 12th grade students voted for their favorite snow court members through a ballot selection, And then cans were placed in the kennel for students to vote by donation for the Snow King and Queen. The Queen and King this year was Katie Korinchek and Vinny Ledbetter. Congratulations to both. The next thing for student council was we hosted a Secret Santa over the course of a week, in which local businesses were contacted to donate gift cards, and we did random drawings each day for at least one student and one faculty member to receive a Secret Santa gift. Special thank you to Wishes Restaurant, Great Scott Escapes, Taco Bell, Applebee's, Chick-fil-A, and Sheets for supporting our event. Two more things for student council. We hosted a holiday spirit week. Each day, students were encouraged to participate in a spirit day activity, along with providing a donation for a local shelter. Hats, scarves, slippers, toys, and gloves were collected and distributed to local shelters. And then the last thing for student council is we hosted a winter sports assembly on December 23rd. The assembly included announcing the snow court and crowning the King and Queen, a holiday dance performance by the Southmoreland Cheer Squad, and holiday music by the Southmoreland Jazz Band, a coach pie in the face, and a recognition of all winter sports athletes. Sorry. That's everything for student council. I have something on the literary magazine for Dr. Brown's creative writing class. Dr. Brown's creative writing class is accepting submissions for the high school literary and art magazine. Last year's literary magazine will be posted on the high school website for the public to view. The last thing I have is for YEA. We contributed to Buddy Day this year. It was held in October, and it was at Twin Lakes Park. It was attended by 80 or so students, and who are all paired with special education students throughout our district. We spent the day exploring the park, dancing. I think, no, there was not bounce houses this year. That was 2 years ago. But it was just a really fun time. Petting zoos, fishing. Next thing for YEA is reading buddies. YEA members have also volunteered their time after school on several Fridays and will continue to do so. SHS students walk over to the SPC and spend time with the kids reading books and working on social skills. We have the SPC book fair. When the PTA needed help with the book fair, YEA members jumped at the opportunity. Members helped the kids at SPC work their way through the book fair, keep tabs on their money, and help check out books. The last thing for YEA is the West Overton Candlelight Tour. Over the course of 3 weekends in December, YEA members volunteered their time to help at West Overton's candlelight tours for the Christmas holiday. Students worked 4 shifts on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, helping with various activities and logistic needs to move people through the tour. The staff at West Overton Museums were very grateful and complimented our students many times. That's all I have for my report today.
Continuing on that, it won't let me show my video. I don't know why, but for the TFIM clubs, we've been actively fundraising and participating and planning several events this year. Students attended the Penn State Social Science field trip at the end of October, where they're given a tour of Fayette campus and learned about careers such as criminal justice, psychology, and family studies. It was a great opportunity to learn about some opportunities for students after high school. For job shadowing, students are actively working on job shadowing opportunities via the club. As part of the shadowing, students visit a host for a day and learn about career paths associated with those jobs and have the opportunity to network with people in the fields that they may be interested in. For t-shirts, working with Mr. Pollard's commercial graphic classes, executive council members of the club have designed club t-shirts that are printed and available for any member. The screen printing that Mr. Pollard incorporates into his classroom benefits all students as a wonderful hands-on project that replicates the design process. Thank you, Mr. Pollard. And for snow tubing, TFIM members have planned their annual snow tubing trip to Seven Springs. Through fundraising, members will be able to offset the cost of busing to the resort. Let's keep our fingers crossed that the weather holds out and we can enjoy some well-earned fun time on the slopes. And for the band, congratulations to the new officers of the Tri-M Honor Society, President Joey Keppel, Vice President Taylor Black, Secretary Rachel Springer, Treasurer Julia Wadsworth, Historian Lizzie Albright, and Publications Chair Eric Barber. Congratulations to the new members of the Tri-M Honor Society, Nolan Blaze, Chris Headley, Derek Huff, Addison Noel, Faith Tarr, Amber Yezik, and Angelina Sophia. Congratulations to the honorary member, Mr. Jim Hennigan, Elementary and Middle School Band Director, on his recognition and honor. And congratulations to Faith Garstek for being selected to participate in the Junior High County Band Festival at Norman High School on January 7th. Congratulations to Eric Barber, Senior Trombonist, for participating in the PMEA District Orchestra hosted at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center in Pittsburgh on Friday, January 14th and Saturday, January 15th. Eric placed first overall in the trombone section, performed on the trombone and euphonium, and will be advancing to Region Orchestra held in February at Du Bois High School. And congratulations to Elizabeth Albright, Kate Kramer, Addison Noel, Gracie Smith, Julia Wadsworth, Joseph Keppel, Taylor Black, Nolan Blaze, Rachel Springer, Max Findinid, Chris Headley, Eric Barber, Allie McGuire for being selected to perform in Fay West Honors Band concert hosted by Albert Gallatin High School at Laurel Highlands on Friday, January 21st. Congratulations to Addison Noel, Zach McGrath, Taylor Black, Nolan Blaze, Rachel Springer, Ethan Bird, Eric Barber, and Sydney Bodenheimer for being selected to participate in Senior High District Band Festival at Bell Vernon High School on Thursday, January 27th and Friday, January 28th. The students will have the opportunity to audition for the opportunity to qualify for Region Band held at Mount Lebanon in March 2022. And the cast, crew, and pit orchestra are excited to start the 2022 production of Anything Goes. The show will be Thursday, March 31st through Sunday, April 3rd at Southmoreland High School. We hope you will save the dates. Check out the Southmoreland High School Music Facebook page and www.southmorelandmusical.net for website for more information. And that's all I have for our report.
Thank you both for being with us tonight and for your report. We're glad to see you all back with us moving forward. I hope you guys can continue to attend and share with us what's going on at the high school.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Acceptance of posted policies.
Board is asked to approve the policies listed below, which have been posted on the district's website for a period of 30 days. These policies are the 600 finances.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Frund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Acceptance of posted policies.
Board is asked to approve the policies listed below that have been posted on the district's website for a period of 30 days. These policies are the board operation guidelines, policies 000s, 100s, the 200, the 300, and the 900 policies.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Freund,
Yeah.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Professional services agreement with Excella.
Board is asked to accept the professional service agreement with Excella Health.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Freund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
St. Vincent WEDAC grant.
Board is asked to pay $1,020 to the Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission for prevention project services.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Freund,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Excella Health Athletic Training Services.
Board is asked to approve the renewal letter with Excella Health for athletic trainer services.
I need a motion.
Motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. O'Rear,
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Freund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Shared liaison through Westmoreland County Student Assistant Program for the 2022-2023 school year.
Board is asked to approve sharing of liaison through Westmoreland County Student Assistance Program, SAP, for the 2022-2023 school year.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
Who is our current liaison? Like, is there a specific person? That that we contact regarding these services?
It is still through the Westmoreland County. They will assign a liaison for us. We had a change this year, so yes, we do have one, but they assign.
They assign.
Depending on-
them.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Of whoever's available and in staffing. There's staffing problems everywhere.
Right. Right.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Freund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Approve Dr. Sam Wagner, Kreisinger Dental, for dental exams at a fee of $10 per child.
The board is asked to approve Dr. Sam Wagner, Kreisinger's Dental, to provide dental service exams at a fee of $10 per student.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Will they come to our school, or is this something we would take our student to or our child to?
They come in-house. Mr.
Okay.
Monroe. They will come to the school.
They do come to the school.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Freund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
2022 election of WIU board member.
The board is asked to consider a board member to fulfill a position at WIU board member at a term commencing July 1st, 2022 and ending July 1st, 2025.
So I would like to nominate Dr. Fike for this, but I feel
No,
funny.
I spoke to her. I spoke
Okay.
to her and asked if it would be okay if I nominated her, and she said she would gladly do it again.
A second in nomination.
And just to clarify, you can nominate a board member when they're not present at the meeting. That's acceptable.
Thank you. So I have a nomination for Dr. Fike, and I have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Is this, I seen where it takes place like June 6, 2022. Is there a reason we're doing it so far in advance? Like,
I would assume she's currently in that role.
right.
And I think that, do they have monthly meetings or every other month, Mr. Masha?
They have monthly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would assume that the IU wants to know ahead of time who's
They
going
do.
for positions.
They have requested us to do this. It's something we have to do for the IU,
Gotcha.
their request.
Okay, just curious.
Roll call.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Freund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
WCPSHC Third Amendment to Trust Document.
The board is asked to approve the signing of the Third Amendment to Trust Agreement for Westmoreland County Public School Healthcare Consortium.
I need a motion.
So move.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call?
Mr. Freund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Approve First National Bank credit card.
The board is asked to approve acquiring a credit card from First National Bank to replace the American Express card. American Express isn't accepted for some of the purchases the district routinely makes. The district, as a practice, pays off its credit card charges in full each month. Therefore, we do not incur any interest charges.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I thought we just voted on this last meeting. Did
We talked about it last meeting, but we did
Discussion.
not vote on it.
Gotcha. You're right. You're right.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Friend,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Act 1?
The board is asked to approve the attached Act 1 budget resolution.
Need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. O'Rear,
Sorry. I'm passing. I'm rereading this. Sorry.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Friend,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 pass, 1 absent.
I'd like to change my vote on that. Can I amend my vote? Am I able to do that?
I wouldn't characterize it as amending it, but yes,
Oh,
you can change your vote from the pass.
okay. And vote yes, Mrs. Tarzan.
Motion carries 8 yes and 1 absent.
Approve budgetary transfer to fund bus routing program.
Board is asked to approve the attached budgetary transfer to fund the implementation of the bus routing program.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
Discussion?
Was this, when we were discussing it last meeting, where we were discussing like part of it was gonna be, was there a 2-part amount, Mrs. Mondock? No.
No, it's just, that was the amount for this, that was needed for this year. And with that amount in the account code that I selected, there is enough to do the sidewalk fill of the $4,800 that Mr. Master presented to you this evening. There's still
Okay.
going to be that amount of money in that account.
Okay, I remember we talked about 2 separate amounts, but okay,
Mhm.
okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
So,
Mhm.
so then this would not leave any money for what, Mr. Scheller was talking about, somebody being there that was doing concrete repair or the paving. This wouldn't allow for any slabs that needed further.
It would leave a few $1,000s.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Friend,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
No.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Approve Bus Boss as the hosted transportation routing system.
Board is asked to approve Bus Boss as the hosted transportation routing and management software, subject to the solicitor's final review of the contract.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Should we
Mr. Ship-
wait?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Should we wait until the final review comes in? Or do we have to vote on it for the final review to come in?
Do you want to answer that, Mr. Delwicker?
Of course. Let me just pull up the action really quick. So of course, the board has the discretion whether or not to move forward at this time. But based on the language we've included, it gives me the opportunity to review the contract after they've prepared and submitted it to me. And assuming there are no issues, I would recommend that the board approve the contract itself. So we're kind of delineating between selecting Bus Boss and approving the contract. So we are agreeing to go forward with Bus Boss under this action based on the representations they've made to the board. But if for whatever reason, there are areas of concern within the contract, and if those areas of concern can't be resolved to the satisfaction of the board, I would provide you with a report, and you could make a decision to decline to move forward with Bus Boss.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Frond,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Advertise committee dates. Committee
Board
meeting
is-
dates, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
I do that to you all the time, Ms. Williams. I apologize.
It's okay.
The board is asked to authorize the administration to advertise board meeting, committee meetings upon receiving the meeting dates.
I need a motion.
So move.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
I don't mean to sound like, other people when we ask this, because do we need to do a roll call on this, or is this something?
You're spending money to advertise.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Okay.
Roll call.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Frond,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
I didn't know that we paid every time we advertise. I thought we paid like a flat fee, like throughout the year. So we pay every single time we advertise. Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
okay. Ouch.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of wanted to do these all at one time for the entire, remainder of the year to
Just take out a whole column.
money.
The whole front page.
Yeah.
Increase daily substitute teacher pay rate.
Due to staffing shortages, the board is asked to consider increasing the daily substitute teacher rate to $115 and $125 for building level substitutes. This is a temporary measure, and the rates may be reduced by the board through future action.
I'll
Make the motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Frond,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Remove from the table the memorandum of understanding for Dean of Students.
The memorandum of understanding for Dean of Students was tabled at the January 13th, 2022 meeting. The board president will now entertain a motion to take this item from the table.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Memorandum of understanding for Dean of Students.
The board is asked to approve the memorandum of understanding between the SEA and SSD for the position of Dean of Students.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Frond,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Remove from the table the approval of the Dean of Students.
The Dean of Students motion was tabled at the January 13th, 2022 meeting. The board president will now entertain a motion to take this item from the table.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approval of the Dean of Students.
The board is asked to hire Lisa Shinsky as the Southmoreland Elementary School and the Southmoreland Middle School Dean of Students effective immediately.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
I need a
second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Frond,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Remove from the table the approval of long-term middle school ELA teacher.
The approval for the long-term middle school ELA teacher was tabled at the January 13th, 2022 meeting. The board president will now entertain a motion to take this item from the table.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of long-term middle school ELA teacher.
The board is asked to approve Samantha Taraboletti as a long-term middle school ELA teacher for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Do we need to put on there effective immediately?
It probably would be clear, better defined, yes.
That would be an appropriate amendment. Yes.
Can we, if
I
we are
amend
making,
that we,
can you
What?
give me 1 second, Mrs.
Sorry.
Earth? Can we also amend that this person will be paid according to the SEA contract for long-term subs if we're amending the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
so I amend the motion to, what was I amending? Sorry. I amend the motion to stay effective immediately, and then I give the floor to Mrs. Williams to amend.
We'd also like to amend that to be paid according to the SEA contract for long-term subs.
I need,
Need a motion?
And she made the motion.
I need a second.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, so that was just to amend the motion, correct? Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, and now I need a motion too, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve Samantha Taraboletti as long-term middle school ELA teacher for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year, effective immediately at a pay rate according to the SEA contract for long-term subs.
So moved.
Second.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Friend,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
High school principal and assistant principal job descriptions.
Board is asked to approve the job descriptions for the high school principal and the high school assistant principal.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. I would like to have a little bit of discussion about the terms of the assistant principal position, to change that to be a 12-month position versus an 11-month position. So,
Mr. Mashik, can you speak as to why that would be important?
okay.
Yes. I think that moving it to a 12-month position allows for greater flexibility in that individual working with the administration and with parents and students at the high school. It gives greater opportunity for parents to reach out during those summer months for any issues that might be of concern, whether it not be scheduling or any other school-related issues. It also would allow that individual the ability to be able to work with students that are looking to enroll in the SOLA program. So I do think it would be beneficial to have that person as a 12-month employee versus the 11.
Michelle, I have a question.
Yes,
How much is it going to pay now? Is it going to pay for 12 months?
it's
How
going to
much
be the same rate because we had some discussion
You froze.
that we felt that the 85,000, we have that exact dollar amount. I'm sorry, I don't have it.
85,690, Mrs. Williams.
Was a fair salary for 12 months for basically this could be an entry level person coming into an administrative position for the first time.
So what do we do now, like without the assistant principal, when we have parents and students calling in to find out, regarding SOLA or regarding scheduling and that kind of stuff? Like, what's going on now?
So over the past summer, there was not you get a message when you call the guidance counselor saying that they are not in the building. When they return, they'll return a call. So our guidance counselors are in the buildings according to the SEA contract. Sorry, now my house will start. According to the SEA contract. So there are not people there to answer questions regarding enrolling in SOLA or even enrolling in your classes to be in the brick and mortar over the summer. So if somebody were to move into the district, somebody was to want to change from being cyber schooled, there would not be anybody there to actually answer those questions.
So like this whole time, we've never had that?
Correct.
Well, let me try to clarify something. While the guidance counselors are not supposed to be working, I have a sneaking suspicion that they do a lot of things, even though they shouldn't be doing that, according to their contract, because they're so dedicated and they have all these kids to deal with. The email that you get back gives you a lot of resources in it. And I know as a parent, I still received things from them, even though they weren't technically there. But I think that having a vice principal there would definitely assist the guidance counselors with some of those questions, because some questions are answerable by a principal or a vice principal, but if it's just going directly to a guidance counselor, I'm sure they're inundated with questions and emails and phone calls when they get back. So if someone could kind of weed through some of those, I'm sure it would be helpful, during the summer.
Mrs. Williams, may I add to that also? I would like to reiterate that our guidance counselors are very dedicated and they just don't turn their backs on situations. They will assist, but it is limited on their ability to be able to work during the summer. So I think that would be a big enhancement to the services that we would be providing to our school community.
Mr. Mash, if I could just point something out also. Schedules are continuing to be built. Master schedules are continuing to be built into the summer. And so sometimes the counselors won't be there until after that schedule is completed. We may find that we're changing courses, or we may have more kids than asking for an elective that we thought we were going to have, not as many in another. So there's always a kind of adjusting to try to make sure that works. And the counselors who are working through the beginning of the summer may not see the finished product until they come back to us in August. So a lot of that sometimes isn't really in their control. As the son of a guidance counselor, I can tell you that I know how he felt about that sometimes. He would be kind of wanting to do more and not always having all the information, because we're still figuring out the master schedule and making sure we got enough sections in the right places that allow kids to get all of their AP courses, for example, or participate in a couple of things that might be at the same time. So getting a master schedule to be locked in at about 75-80% was always the goal when I was an assistant. Dan's gotten it over 90, but it does take time to get there. It's a pretty daunting challenge. So sometimes it's just they don't have that information yet because the master schedule is not complete. And we're constantly trying to adjust it and make it better, get more kids in, because what happens is when you don't get it 100%, then you have to hand schedule kids and you're calling them to say, okay, you have 2 classes that you wanted at the same time. And those are the only 2 times we offer it. We need you to choose. And so that's just kind of how it works. So just for the edification of those who are not sure, that does kind of slow things down for our counselors. They don't have that information in June. Even if we want to have our master done, if something changes over the summer, that can affect it. So anybody who works in that, I'm sure Mr. Frum would tell you, or Mr. Shipley would tell you, or Ms. Geyer, things change in our profession sometimes that way.
Thank you, Dr. Claire.
And I think that lightens the load a little bit too when the guidance counselors do come back to the buildings in the fall. They're able to see kids that they haven't seen also, who may need that extra guidance counselor. But whenever we're bogged down with still changing schedules and kids not being an appropriate amount of classes, because I know that happened for some over, at the beginning of the year, maybe they weren't scheduled for something in a certain period. And they're entitled to their summer off too, and they shouldn't have to come back to a lot to deal with in the master schedule. It would be better if they were spending their time actually seeing our students. Is there any other discussion?
And we'll make sure that we reach out to anyone who's applied if that does pass, just to, reaffirm that they still want to do a 12-month term. Correct. Or a 12-month job title.
Correct. We've not interviewed anybody yet for this position. So I think when we're making our list of people we'd like to interview, I think that can be a conversation that is had regardless, because even some of the resumes that come in from this point forward may not be people who were aware that that changed within the job description. Mr. Delacour, do you want me to, need to amend something in here? So we
That's,
just amend the job description.
that's correct. I just need an amendment for the high school assistant principal job description, changing the terms of employment from an 11-month work year to a 12-month work year.
Okay, so I need a motion to amend the motion to amend the job description for the high school assistant principal to a 12-month term.
Second, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay,
You
sorry, I
made
didn't
the
hear the first, so I
motion.
need a second. Yes.
Yeah, I was the first, sorry.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so now I need a motion to approve the job descriptions for the high school principal and assistant principal as amended.
So moved.
You need a second?
I think I
need a second?
Second.
I think there needs to be another amendment on the recommended action where it says high school principal. We need to add middle school principal or all principals. However,
No, this is a different, because we have a job description for the middle school principal. We already approved that. This is just.
when? Wait a minute.
I think when we advertised for the middle school
Yes.
principal, a couple months ago, I think we approved that
Oh,
description.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I don't know why. I think just because since we just recently hired him. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think we did that back in, I think it was November.
November.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been
I know,
forever.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Time's flying. Okay.
So did I have
Sorry.
a second? I'm sorry.
Yes, second.
Yes, Mr. Shipley.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Frund,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Food service director's job description?
The board is asked to approve the food service director's job description.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Were we amending anything in that as far as detailed as far as for summer wise? If we were doing a 10th to or a 10 or a 12 month?
This is as a 12-month position.
It is. Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Liza,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes, I just don't see in there where it says or states 12 month. I'm sorry.
At the very top?
What?
Sure, whatever. I see it now.
Mr. Polakowski,
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Frund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Long-term substitute teacher?
Mrs. Williams, we're going to amend
Yes.
that should probably be effective immediately. And then also what you had added concerning the SEA, following the SEA contract for long-term subs.
So Mr. Delacour, we have to read this motion as it is and then make an amendment motion, correct?
Yes, that would be the most appropriate way of dealing with it.
Okay.
The
Do you
board
want to
is
read
asked
that?
to-
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
The board is asked to approve Sheila Boots as a long-term elementary school substitute teacher for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. So I need a motion to amend, correct, Mr. Licker? So I need a motion to amend this to be effective immediately at a pay rate according to the SEA contract for long-term subs.
So moved.
Sorry.
Second,
I thought when we make the amendment, we are making the motion to amend, like we're making the first, and then somebody else would be the second. Is that correct?
Well, President Williams was giving a description of what that amendment needs to look like, but we do need someone separate to make the motion and then someone to second it.
Actual motion. Okay, so moves.
I need it. Okay, so we had a motion and we have a second.
Yes.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Frund,
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer,
Yes.
Mr. Lizza,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, I am going to need a motion for a 3-minute recess to allow for public comment. If anybody would like to call in, that number is 724-640-2609. I'll give you that one more time. 724-640-2609. And I need a motion for a 3-minute recess.
I'll make that motion.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, just remember that we are live streaming, so if everybody would mute while we're on the 3-minute recess. Thank you. I need a motion to go back into session.
So move.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye. No, I am in favor. Sorry.
Is there any, have there been any other call-ins?
I didn't receive any calls from anyone wishing to comment.
Thank you. Did you have anything from earlier, Mrs. Tarzan?
No, I did not.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, I just have a quick question. I know we didn't cover it tonight, but the interventionalist, do we have their interviews set up?
We do.
Okay, okay.
The board will be receiving the, Mrs. Tarzan finished it up today and you'll be receiving
okay.
this tomorrow.
Okay, okay. I keep thinking today's Friday, to be honest with you. And then is it kind of be like how we did the teachers? Interviews, like the 3-step thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
We're
I didn't know if we were invited to come or not. So I just wanted to kind of prep myself.
Dr. Clara, would you like to add to that?
So there will be probably 7 or 8 each night. It's going to be a lot longer to try to get through all of those. So we're going to do the first round and then we'll have recommendations for you. Maybe you would like to see the second, but at least let us get through the first ones and kind of get down to who we think we might want to consider. It's a lot. So, and we'll be doing it after work again. So we will we'll keep you guys posted on it.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. That's all.
I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Be safe, stay warm.
Mm.
Thanks. Have a good night.